Hello and welcome to week 13 of English 1301 online. This week we are beginning module 4, which will be our final module for the class. So we are working on the argument essay. So if you take a look, we don't have that many assignments actually associated with this. I think we have about 4 plus the final essay, and we're going to be writing an argument essay, which is something that you have actually already been doing if you consider that everything is an argument. So let's take a look at what an argument essay consists of. Not in the assignments, though. We'll take a look at the basic features of an argument essay. And as you can see, we have done away with all of the color coding and whatnot, and we're just down to the basic things. So it's going to be choose your argument. In this case, our argument is going to be something under the umbrella topic of social media. So you need to start thinking about something that you would like to argue for or against within social media, because not only is this going to be an argument essay, it's going to be a light research essay. In other words, you're going to have at least one academic source, outside source, for your essay that's going to help highlight some issue or problem with social media that you would like to address. So you're going to choose your argument first. Then, of course, your essay is going to be almost exactly like the last essays, with you're going to have an introduction where you're going to introduce your strong stance. Your thesis is going to, and the thesis is going to be uh, what your idea is about whatever the social media topic is. So, for example, if you were to do something along the lines of teenagers and TikTok, if you were against teenagers being on TikTok for some reason, you'd say TikTok is bad for teenagers because of blank, blank, and blank. And you have your 3 points as to why TikTok was bad for teenagers. Uh, Again, that's just an example, but you want to make sure that you have your argument, what you're arguing for or against, and then 3 points of evidence that you are going to use in your paper to prove your argument. You're also going to have what's called a counter argument and a rebuttal. And the counter argument is that you have to acknowledge that there is another side to the story. So, for example, if you were to say that TikTok is bad for teenagers, sorry about that. Sorry about the noise there. If TikTok is bad for teenagers, then you would have to say the counter argument is that TikTok is good for teenagers. And while you may not agree with that, it is the counter argument. And you'd say, this is all fine and good. So you'd say, while some people believe TikTok can be good for teenagers, you're going to rebut that and say, it is not good for teenagers because of, and take it back to your argument. So again, the counter argument is whatever the opposite of your argument is. And then you're going to rebut that with, basically say, well, they're wrong because of this, or there might be some truth to that in some instances. Whatever it is, you're going to acknowledge that there is another side to the story, but then you're going to go back to your argument and say, but my argument's better because of this, right? So make sure that there is something that is actually better about yours when you acknowledge the counter argument. So again, you're going to have your introduction with your thesis. You're going to have your 3 points of support for your thesis, your evidence to support it. You're going to have a counter argument where you acknowledge that there is another side to the story, but you're also going to tell them why it's wrong and come back to your argument. And then finally, you're going to have your conclusion where you restate your thesis and argument. Now, your counter argument, your rebuttal can be at the very beginning of your essay. It can be. I wouldn't recommend putting it in the introduction, but you could put it right after the introduction if you wanted to, or you could wait to the very end to do it. Whatever you are more comfortable with. We actually use argument and counter argument all the time in our conversations with people, particularly when we are trying to persuade them of something. But in any case, that's the basic features of an argument. And it, again, has been something that we have been working on for some time. So there's other videos and things that you can take a look at. There's another website. We're really going to focus on those next week when we get more into it. But this week, I really want you to focus on thinking about what you want your argument to be. And also, one of the other requirements that's going to be for this particular essay is you're going to have a academic source, but you're also going to have to reference one of these social media articles that we are going to be reading. And this is just to give you an overview of some of the ideas and topics within social media, not just can teenagers use it or not, or is it bad for kids? But there's some other issues that are related to social media that I want you to be aware of. And we are going to be reading these articles. And just like we did for the parenting method articles, we're going to summarize these articles. So let's take a look. Here under the social media articles, there are 4 articles that I would like for you to focus on. And there are 4. So be sure that you are only looking at these 4. I think there's the only ones that you can see, but make sure you do see all 4. So the first one is, "He has real friends anymore." And this is a New York Post article. I realize that some of these articles are dated, but I think that they are still relevant on some level. So be sure to take a look at it. You're going to be summarizing this article about, this one is kind of typically about the idea that Facebook or Twitter, as they say here, that um, do we have real friends anymore, or are all the friends on social media kind of fake friends? Or do we even remember people's birthdays? That sort of thing. So be sure to read through that. You're going to summarize it. Make sure that when you're writing your summaries, you are putting the author's name and the title of the article in the summary. The second article that I'd like for you to read is "Why Millennials Will Learn Nothing from Facebook's Privacy Crisis." Now, this one is a little more interesting. This has to do with when Facebook was caught selling users' information to a third party group who then sold it to um, different political campaigns. So it's really interesting. You guys have grown up in a time, for the most part, where privacy has been kind of, well, it's just there's a line that we walk with it. And this article is kind of about that, why they're not going to learn anything from it, or, whether they should or not. So be sure to summarize that. Read through and summarize. This third one is a little more interesting. It's about how fake accounts can constantly manipulate what you see on social media. And this is about puppet accounts. And I think this one's actually really important to realize that a lot of times if you're on social media arguing, quote unquote, arguing with people, going back and forth with it, it's entirely possible that all of that is being set up just to farm engagement. And this article talks about sock puppet farms, which are basically bot farms that just try to keep you engaged, because the longer you're engaged with something, the more views it's going to get, the more money it can potentially make. So, interesting article. I learned some things when I read through it. I think you will too. And then finally, the last article that I have, it's called China's Social Credit System. And the actual title is a little bit longer, and I do have this one. It's "China has started ranking citizens with a creepy social credit system. Here's what you can do. What you can do wrong and the embarrassing, demeaning ways they can punish you." You can use the title "China's Social Credit System." Is fine for this, but it's an interesting article about what is going on currently in China, which began some years ago, and how they are using what is deemed social credit to keep people from behaviors that the Chinese government finds unacceptable. I'll just put it that way. So read through this article and make sure you summarize it too. And then when we write our essays, will be choosing one of those 4 articles to reference, as well as some other outside source of information. And you can have as many sources as you want of popular media as long as you have one academic source. Now, we'll be discussing what the difference is between sources next week when we start actually looking at working on the paper. But for this week, I want you guys to focus on choosing a topic to argue for or against and to summarize the articles. And then finally, there was one more assignment this week, which is chapter 15, questions and comments. So be sure to take a look at that. It's key features and a writing guide to writing arguments. And this is probably not going to let me sign in, but it is chapter 15 in our ebooks. So in any case, let me know if you have any questions or comments. Again, that's social media article summaries and chapter 15 for this week. The social media account for attendance for the week, and I will be sure to put that in the announcements. If you have any questions, be sure to email me. Otherwise, have a great week, and I'll talk to you later.